Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be talking to a friend of mine called Rose. Rose is a psychoanalyst and she's been listening to the infamous Alastair Leslie Series. She wanted to talk to me about them and she thought it might be interesting if we recorded the session. I have edited out some parts where we were making personal conversation or just straying off the point.
Hello Annie.
Hello Rose.
I have really enjoyed the series. I've enjoyed all the videos that you've done, but there was a particular interest with the Alastair Leslie series. I think it took me till episode 9 to realise that you were actually chatting to more than one person.
Yeah, interesting because a lot of people commented about that and I didn't actually realise at the time.
And you didn't realise because I believe because you were concentrating so hard on the content to keep the conversation going, keep them interested and to keep them engaging.
I think you're probably right.
When I realised in session 9 that there were definitely at least 2 people, it became blatantly apparent to me then that even though they kind of stick to the same tactics, the 2 of them approach it in quite a different way. I saw the tactics that we used, which is employed by a lot of scammers, is the carrot and stick. The carrot and stick that they used was the present, the diamond ring.
The
times
3
3.
diamond rings.
Yeah, times 3. And also the difference in the tone of voice and the slight difference in their accent, but also their approach was completely different. I realised that one of the personas used this tactic of, it was, quite romantic. He kept trying to pull Denise in with his kind of flirtatious compliments, whereas the other one, it was more focused on the objective of the extortion of the money, wasn't it? It was a bit impatient.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't realise at the time because I was aware that sometimes all he wanted to talk about was, am I allowed to say sex on YouTube? I don't know. I'll think about that one.
Yeah.
That all he wanted to talk about was sex, and whereas other times all he wanted to talk about was how valuable the diamond rings are.
Yeah, and if you go back to the aspect of sex, I noticed that you was cleverly very, very boundaried.
Oh right, I find it very hard to engage with them on that subject when you know that they're about half your age.
The tactics that they use are like widespread, but he couldn't pull you in on that, and he couldn't understand why he couldn't pull you in.
Yeah.
And he kept trying. I think the fact that you called him darling hid the fact that you just weren't engaging. You kept him hanging on without giving him anything back.
Yeah.
Really. But they try, the romance, companionship, friendship, because they're targeting lonely, vulnerable people.
Yeah.
And, that's their aim. But one of them wasn't that way inclined at all. Sometimes he seemed impatient when things didn't go his way.
Yes.
Yeah, he had almost an air of contempt, one of them.
Yes, very much so.
And the other one was kind of more lovey-dovey. He was, he had the softer, he kind of went under and tried to appeal to your supposed loneliness.
Do you think they were deliberately alternating? Because I was conscious at the time that sometimes, as I say, I wasn't conscious at the time that there was 2 of them, but I was conscious that sometimes we'd have that conversation where he was trying to draw me into telling him that that Denise loved him and all that kind of stuff. And then he would call off and then he would call back fairly soon after and be ever so matter of fact and talking about the diamond rings and the money again. Do you think they were deliberately swapping scammers at that stage?
That did run through my mind, but I'm not sure whether it was deliberate. I think maybe the contemptuous one was maybe the boss. And the other one was reporting back, oh, it's gone wrong. Everything's gone wrong because the police have been involved. What do we do now? And then the authoritative one would appear and be all matter of fact and, it it was more to do with the process of what you need to do to get his money.
Okay. His reaction when I told him about the police wasn't what I was expecting.
There was absolutely no empathy.
No, none at all. But I was expecting him to get very angry. Either angry with Denise or angry that he wasn't believed.
Well, I could feel, it was palpable, was the contempt that was coming through. Even though he didn't demonstrate anger per se, he was very short and to the point, and then they employ the other tactic of the guilt. You know,
Yes.
It's all about, isn't the ring enough for you? It's your fault.
Yes. Yes.
You need to try harder. You
Yes.
absolutely need to try harder.
Yes.
But you were very, very good in your responses. You know, you actually were a bit like tennis. You put it back in his court several times.
I personally have never given in to bullies, and I don't think ever in my entire life, ever since I was a child. So it's kind of built into me to stand up to bullies.
And I don't think, you know, that they were ready for that. You know, because that's, you know, if you've got a vulnerable old lady called Denise, usually when you employ the tactics of guilt, then Denise will dance to your tune. But you were, although you appeared to be upset because that's the persona you were giving out, you didn't, you know, get hysterical or anything. And you were very, you know, kind of steady in your stance of, well, there isn't the things you can do. Don't, like, lay this all on me. Can't you do this and can't you do that? As many orders as he gave you, you gave him.
Yes.
It was really good. I don't think that they, you know, will have, in a million years, have come across somebody with such resolve.
When I listened to episode 9 again the other day, after you talked to me about it, I was seized with the urge to strangle him because he was just being so vile, wasn't he?
Yeah. And it was the soft, I think it was the soft one first, if I remember. Then the middle one was the more contemptuous one, and then the soft one at the end. And I could see where you were coming from in the, do you think the, you know, one and then the other is on purpose? I think maybe it's just that one's the boss and one wants the job done, and it's the other one's job to soft soap you. And it does make me wonder, did they get off on it, some of them?
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
some of them definitely do. I know that because of bits that I've cut out and not uploaded to YouTube. Yes, some of them definitely do. I don't know that he did, but I think he did, actually. I think there were a couple of bits in the early ones that I cut out. But yes,
yeah.
I do. Which is very
again,
sad,
you know,
isn't it?
It is very sad, but it's something that, you know, needs bringing to the forefront, because there will be people who, for whatever reasons, be it being widowed or divorced or whatever, you know, that are very vulnerable and very lonely and can't see the wood for the trees, bereaved, and get drawn into their web of sickliness.
Yeah.
You know, it needs talking about, because at least, you know, that it's very relevant. If anybody searches on YouTube and finds the internet romance, at least, you know, they can hear the repetition firsthand.
Yes.
Of the tactics they employ, which is sickening.
Yeah, because they all employ variations of the same tactics.
Of the same thing, yeah. Even with the cutting and pasting of the, in one of them, they were talking to two of your alter egos at once.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was Muth Morris, wasn't it, who was talking to two of them. So he never quite gave up contacting Annie intermittently. A couple of weeks ago, he contacted her one evening, and I was chatting to a friend on Facebook, and we decided that we had to answer him. So Annie's mother, Denise, answered him and said, "Hello, darling. Annie's had a terrible accident. She's been in hospital for 2 months." Cut a long story very short, we then got Annie, who was feeling ever so poorly, managed to talk to him. And she told him that the occupational therapist was coming to see if she could use a wheelchair. He asked her if she'd got her wheelchair, because he was still trying to get the money from her, except that when his so-called solicitor emailed her, instead of wanting $750, which is what he'd asked her for before, he asked her for $1,000, despite claiming that he cared terribly much for Annie. All he cared about was whether she got her wheelchair so she could get into town to send him his money.
And they're really not very bright, are they?
No.
And they don't seem to be able to employ empathy. They can either employ sex/romance or pressure.
Yes.
There's nothing in between.
My experience before I started the YouTube channel, because I've been running the Keep Safe on the Net blog for about 12, probably 14 years now. And over the years, I've had a lot of people leave comments who've been taken in by scammers. And one thing I've noticed on the blog in the past is that a lot of the victims were people for whom English was a second language. So they weren't aware of the faults in the language that the scammers were using. Well, they weren't aware of the differences. So they couldn't tell the difference between the copy and paste stuff and the bits that the scammers were saying for themselves. The people that are contacting me now through YouTube are generally people for whom English is their first language, but often people that were on dating websites. And I think the people on dating websites are particularly vulnerable. Not that they're vulnerable people, but when you're on a dating website, you're looking for love and you're looking for somebody that's going to say nice things to you, that's going to be romantic. So they don't stop and think, why is this person in wherever, Afghanistan, America, Syria, wanting to talk to me? So in other words, they're not asking themselves, why am I being contacted by someone that's not local, somebody who can't actually meet me?
They're just trying to engage, strike up a relationship.
Yes. The problem is, because I know that they're scammers and I know how the scammers work, I completely just find it funny. But for someone that's actually genuinely looking for love and thinks they've been contacted by a genuine widow or widower, who genuinely looking for somebody to form a relationship with,
who's generally usually lost his wife and kids in some sort of tragic accident.
Yes, always.
Yes, always.
Apart from the one the other day who'd lost his dog. Did you see that one?
Oh dear. No, I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, you'll have to watch that one, yes. Very tragic tale, that.
Even going back to Denise, the £800 would have been the tip of the iceberg. Yes. It would have been the £800, then it would have been the savings plus her house.
Absolutely.
I actually know somebody that struck up a relationship with one of the scammers, and he actually came to England. They talked about coming to England, and we just assume that it's the money that they're after, but it's not necessarily just the money. I mean, this guy ended up coming to England.
And what was he after?
Probably after citizenship.
Which country did he come from? I'm guessing Turkey or somewhere like that.
No, it wasn't Turkey. I think it was somewhere like Guyana, somewhere like that.
All right. Because I know that, again, from what some people who've contacted me have said, that there's a whole different or similar but different scam that runs from places like Turkey, where people will do that and will go as far as marrying people and taking every penny that they've got.
I honestly don't know whether it got as far as marriage, but there was no telling her. Several people tried. I didn't, because I just watched other people trying, and the people that told her got blocked out of her life.
And what happened in the end? Do you know?
I don't know what happened in the end, but he did come over. Whether they got married or not, I'm not sure. But we talked about, didn't we? You said you knew that when you were giving the false addresses out, one of the cons had a link in Britain that they were looking up to see if the addresses were legitimate.
Yeah, that was the fake Eric Whittaker chap who was absolutely adamant that he wanted to send Annie a gift. It didn't matter how much she said she didn't want one, and he was adamant he was going to send her a gift. So she sent him a fake address. For anyone that's listening to this, please, never, never, never send your real address. So I sent a fake address, and he kept contacting Annie saying that he'd got somebody looking for that address and they couldn't find it. That's right, wasn't it? And then Annie said that she couldn't receive the parcel there because she was living with her elderly mother. So all her parcels were sent to her cousin in Scotland. So she gave another made-up address in Scotland, and then he contacted her again and said he couldn't find the place. And I know that somebody was there looking for it, because he said, is it this community hall or this road, which was the nearest on the map to the made-up address that she'd given him. So I know that he had somebody on the ground looking.
Would he have been using Google Maps?
He could have been, but I just had the feeling that there was somebody actually on the ground, because he was quite urgent about it. You know, they're there now. Tell me where you are. Exactly what was happening, I don't know, because if she'd given him a real address and somebody had actually answered the door, or, you know, she was real and she'd answered the door, I don't know what would have happened.
Right, well, there's a couple of things strike me there. One is that because these scammers have done it multiple times, they might be using Google Maps, because a lot of people might first give a false address.
Yeah.
Well, because people will be less trusting the first time. So it might give, you know, like a false address. He's testing, because, you know, they're giving, again, the carrot and stick, they're giving the present, and that's because they're playing the long game. They're giving a present to gain trust and deepen the relationship, and then going for the kill, which is the prize money. So they might be using Google Maps just to verify whether this person that they're in contact with is scamming them, or whether they're trustworthy. But if it was a man on the ground, then that's scary, because if they've got a gang in England, it could be a burglary thing.
I mean, it frightened me at the time, because I thought, well, what is he up to?
If Denise had got the £800 out because they asked Denise for her address, she could have been burgled tonight.
Yes, of course, because she would actually, because as you were saying that, I was thinking they wouldn't be burgling her for the diamond rings because they know they don't exist. But yes, he was absolutely adamant that she got £800 in cash, wasn't he? He wasn't interested in her going into the bank. Do you know what? I think I even commented on one of them. Why did he not just ask her to go into the bank and transfer the money to the account he'd given her? Now, you could have a point there. He was adamant that she got £800 and took it back to her house, wasn't he?
There's different levels of extortion, because that is their end game, isn't it? You know, by whatever means, and they're really not that bright. And the thing about you that comes across is you listen, they don't.
The thing that really drives me mad is their repeated insistence on asking you, what have you had for lunch? What have you had for breakfast? Why do you want to know what I've just eaten for lunch? If you ask them what they've eaten, they will always come up with some really stupid answer. One chap that I've been talking to, who claims to be in Kuwait, he asked me what I'd had for breakfast, and I said to him something like, why, what did you have for breakfast? Pause in the conversation, and he goes off and Googles what to have for breakfast in Kuwait, and he came up with Cafe Baza, and I said, oh, what's that? And he said, it's the best food in Kuwait. It's a standard question that there must, when you decide to become a scammer, there has to be a checklist that you can buy from your pals with questions to ask your beloved.
I'm sure there isn't, and also it's information gathering, because then if they think they're talking to somebody in England, or they can say that they're in England, like the guy said he was in Belgium. Then if he pretends to be in England, he knows what English have for breakfast, because he's got that information from you.
Oh yes, absolutely, yes, of course.
But they're not as bright as they think they are.
Most of them are not very bright at all.
And I think their Achilles heel is the fact that they really don't listen.
No.
They're that focused on scamming
Yes.
that they think it matters to listen.
Yes. I would love to see, and probably never will, the ongoing conversations between the people that have spent months and months talking to someone. I mean, somebody sent me some recently, but she only sent me the bits that were relevant to when she started to realise that maybe the person she was talking to wasn't all they were cracked up to be. You know, because loads of them want to kiss me. I'm sure you've spotted that. They're always kissing their microphones. Yes. Which I find extremely unsexy personally, but hey, call me perverted if you like. Maybe people are happy to spend time discussing, you know, just being told, because as you say, they don't listen to you, that they will take over the conversation and they will copy and paste reams of how wonderful you are and wake up darling, it's a new morning, and have this poem before you go to bed, and here's a candle to light you to bed, all that kind of stuff. It's designed to give people that sort of warm fuzzy feeling, isn't it?
And also, I guess people that are looking for that warm fuzzy feeling won't be as savvy as Denise or Annie.
No. Personally, and I think I've said in one of the videos that's probably live by the time this goes up, if anyone out there wants to romance me, quit behaving like a lovesick puppy and have a proper conversation.
There is no proper conversation in it, really, is there? There's just cliches.
Yes.
Just cliches.
Yes.
Instructions, cliches.
It's mostly psychological and emotional blackmail, which is, I presume, the point of the sob story at the start is the emotional blackmail to draw your victim in.
Always, that's the plan. And you know, there'll be tried and tested methods. And if they don't, you know, get what they want, then they either get, like you say, you know, the guilt trip or lovey-dovey. And if that doesn't work, they drop you.
Yes.
I wonder if it's a business, you know, I wonder if it's an actual business. You know, like you've got the online sales people that work, you know, for English companies. I wonder if it's like their own business like that. You know, it's a scamming business.
I'm sure it is, because in my mind, there are two types of scammers. There's the ones that work on their own, or the beginners, who are the kids who can't make a conversation and who invariably ask you these days for a Steam card or an iTunes card. And then there are the more experienced ones, well, three kinds maybe. The more experienced ones, like Alastair Leslie, who work in groups and have access to money mules. And then I'm getting a feeling, and I don't have no evidence of this, it's a bit interesting to see what people say in the comments, that there are the people in the middle who will ask you for money and then have to go off and find access to a money mule, because I've had people ask for money and then it take them 24 hours or longer to come back to me with the bank details of a money mule. And I've started to wonder, is that because the larger gangs will grant access to one of their money mules for a fee? So in other words...
if they get a cut. Yes, they get a cut.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that quite a lot recently.
At one time, Alastair Leslie mentioned another country, didn't he, beside Brussels? Beside Belgium, sorry.
He mentioned another... Was it South Africa?
It was. Yeah. And his accent seemed more in tune with South Africa, didn't it, than Belgium. Couldn't even get his time zone right, could he?
No, and I was surprised when I pulled the trick that I won't describe on here on him. I was surprised that he was in Lagos, because I'd convinced myself, because of a comment that somebody left, that he was probably from the Congo or somewhere like that.
Right.
Senegal, I think, might have been one of the suggestions. I was surprised that he was Nigerian. But he was certainly using voice-changing software, which is why both of them sounded so similar.
Yes. To me, there were very subtle changes in the voice, but it was more in the behaviour, the kind of tactics that they employed. You know,
as I'm talking to you, I've realised that one of them kept saying "your country" because he didn't know where I was or couldn't remember where I was, and the other one remembered that I was in Guildford.
Was that the romantic one?
Yes.
That remembered you in Guildford?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that further confirms that the other one was the boss, and he's put on to sort out anything that's not going right. And they were quite insistent that you didn't go back to that bank where the police were.
Yes, which didn't make sense at the time because there was no reason why Denise would have gone back because it wasn't her bank.
And that was just their panic of not being blown. But I am so glad that you are highlighting this, because anybody can fall into any trap at different times, because especially, you know, anybody that's been bereaved often isn't in touch with what's really going on, because grief takes you down. You know, it's very debilitating. And if you get any kind of friendship, so if you get any, you know, an offer of companionship and friendship, anybody can be forgiven for not seeing clearly the process of what's going on.
I don't think anyone is immune. I think anyone can be caught off guard. And although we know that they're almost working to a script because the same phrases are said by all of them, if you've never heard it before, you don't know that they're saying the same as everybody else is saying.
Because you've listened to so many and you can compare it. But if you're hearing it new for the first time, how could you know? How would you know?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would say to anybody watching or listening to this is, if somebody contacts you out of the blue on social media and immediately starts telling you you're beautiful, handsome if you're a man, but for obvious reasons, or my alter ego is a female, if somebody contacts you out of the blue on social media and starts telling you you're beautiful, there's about a 99.9% chance that they're a scammer. Obviously, if you're on a dating website, it's a bit different, but you've got to keep your wits about you. Are they having the kind of conversation you would expect a genuine person to be having with you?
Just something struck me when you were talking then. Sometimes they infiltrate groups on Facebook, like interest groups or illness groups. Like, let's just say they infiltrate a multiple sclerosis group.
Yes.
For example, then they can start the conversation of, my wife died of multiple sclerosis.
Yes.
So I know what it's like, you know, or my brother had multiple sclerosis, or even if they were like an interest group of, I don't know, Dalmatian dogs. It might be, oh, I have a Dalmatian dog. It's my, you know, it's that, finding that common anchor. And then using that, and then bang you into what did you have for your breakfast. They have certain hooks to hook people in.
Some people, of course, would just take it as them being genuinely interested in their
what
life.
They had for the breakfast.
What they had for breakfast, yes. But what you have to bear in mind is, I think you'll see on more than one, if till three of my videos, my characters have said, "Oh, I don't eat, I'm a breatharian."
Hilarious, but again, he didn't hear you.
No.
You know, you might have said, you know, I'm lacking in iron, so I've had a pile of screws. And
I'll try that.
Never missed a beat. He just didn't take on board what you'd said. I was laughing uncontrollably. I'm a breatharian. It didn't latch on at all, did it? Didn't take you on. And there's very little humour, is there, as well? They're so serious.
Yes, you get the occasional one with a sense of humour, but not very often.
No, it's like it is their job, and it's really not funny, sort of thing. And look for vulnerability, or assume vulnerabilities even.
I think assume, because I think most of them are not experienced enough to pick up on the signals that their potential victim is giving out. You get the occasional one that will adjust their scam to what the victim is saying, but most of them don't. Or at least most of the ones that I talk to simply don't. It's like they're focused on going down the tunnel and they're going down it regardless of what you say.
Yeah, it's almost like they've got a check. Right, we need to give you a present. Right, it's got to be a consignment because you've got to pay for the receiving of it. Right, we're going to come over and see you. We're going to buy property. It's almost like they're working to a script, like you say. But what is lacking is the fact, they don't read the victim very well.
No, or at all in most cases, because they are almost, generally speaking, not reading what their victim is saying.
But it's just such a good job that there are people out there that are highlighting this, because it is very, very relevant.
And it's becoming an increasing problem, I think. And as far as I can tell, there's no police force anywhere in the world that has any interest in it. And so the only way to help reduce the impact is to raise awareness. Because I used to be an adult education teacher, I used to teach IT to adults, I hope my videos have that educational side to them as well as the entertainment side.
Yeah, I think it's a good balance. I think it's a really good balance. And I think when you listen to them, you're kind of really rooting for Denise, or you're really rooting for Annie. Who's your other one?
Seraphina.
And
Celia.
That's why I can't remember.
Seraphina is the one who has the special candles that she lights for people's enlightenment. But then if I'm in a bad mood, she flies at them just the same as Annie and Celia would. Denise seems to be immune to my bad moods. She's lucky. Well, thank you very much, Rose. I'll get this up on YouTube and hope that people find it helpful.
It's been great talking to you, Annie. And hopefully we can do it again on another scam.
I hope so. I hope that people will comment down below on whether they found this interesting and useful and whether they'd like us to meet again. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like it, please share it, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again in another Keep Safe on the Net video on YouTube.